Next guest says an important debate is going unnoticed in the GOP field. What to do about an increasingly assertive Vladimir Putin, Russia's new military campaign in Syria, and its intervention in Ukraine. Jerry Seib joins us now. He's Washington bureau chief for the Wall Street Journal. We usually talk to him in D.C. It's nice to have you in person, Jerry.
Thanks.
What a treat.
Happy to be here.
So you said this is really unnoticed, but this is fundamentally important, not just for the Republican Party, but the country overall.
I think
Why?
so. Well, I mean, what you're seeing here is a new Russian approach to not just U.S.-Russian relations, but to international relations. I mean, it's become newly assertive in Syria. It's establishing new ties to the governments in Iraq and Iran, in Jordan. It's obviously continuing to intimidate Ukraine. The question is, what do you do about this? Because this is a Vladimir Putin style that's not going to go away. And what I found interesting is that within the Republican field, there's a really interesting division. Most people wanting to confront Putin, Donald Trump saying, hey, I can get along with this guy.
You mentioned Donald Trump. Here's what he had to say on the Today Show about this issue.
If Putin wants to go and drop bombs on ISIS, I'm okay with it. But we have to do it, too. We have to kill ISIS.
Case in point. So there's a little bit of we have to get involved. But if Vladimir Putin wants to go ahead, all right, why not?
Yeah, well, exactly. And his argument is, and it's not an implausible argument, is if he's going to do the dirty work in Syria and he's going to be the one who runs the risk of getting caught in a Syrian quagmire, well, welcome to it, Vladimir Putin. We'll let you do that. The problem is, and what everybody else in the field says, is you don't want to expand Russian influence in the Middle East, and you don't want to leave Syria to be essentially a Russian protectorate. We have a role there, and we need to play it as well. And by the way, to the extent you create a vacuum, the Russians now show they're going to fill it.
As you mentioned in your column, it's an important question about how we're going to deal with Russia, not just for Republicans, but really for the entire country. Why don't we see the same debate really playing out on the Democrat side?
Well, in a way you are, because you have Hillary Clinton, who is saying essentially, and sometimes not just essentially, sometimes explicitly, I would be tougher in Syria than President Obama has been. I wanted to bomb earlier when they were using chemical weapons. I'm willing to talk about a no-fly zone. She is establishing a position that's a little to the right of President Obama. So you have a little of this on the Democratic side. What's interesting about the Republican side is that the Syria debate and Donald Trump's role in it is a kind of a metaphor for a broader division in the Republican Party that wasn't so obvious before this cycle, which is an interventionist wing, and Lindsey Graham and John McCain personify that, and now a non-interventionist wing, and Donald Trump and to some extent Rand Paul are a little more there.
But those are not the names that you see at the top of the polls when voters are asked who they trust more when it comes to foreign policy.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Who is at the top of the polls?
Well, look, if you believe the poll that we did with the Wall Street Journal poll in the last week, we asked Republican primary voters, is Russia a threat? And 85% of Republican primary voters said it's either an immediate military threat or a long-term military threat. So Donald Trump may not be speaking to the majority of voters in his own party, but there is definitely, though, a group of people who, Republicans and Democrats alike, who are pretty weary after more than a decade in Iraq and Afghanistan.
How does Marco Rubio fit into this conversation? We're talking about him a lot as potentially a target in the debate tonight. When it comes to foreign policy, specifically this issue, he tends to do well amongst Republican voters.
He does, and he is definitely more on the interventionist side of this argument. He's closer to the Lindsey Graham, John McCain part of the party than to the Rand Paul part of the party. So he has established a position in which he is willing to intervene more aggressively in Syria, among other places. So if it's a Donald Trump, a Marco Rubio debate, that's interesting. By the way, there's also an interesting divide between Ben Carson and Donald Trump. Ben Carson is very aggressive on confronting Russia. He talks about things like putting armored brigades in the Baltic states.
Stepping back from all of this, is the diversity of opinion within the GOP on this precise issue a good, healthy debate that the GOP needs to have? Or does it lend some credibility, and I don't know if that's exactly the right language to use, about whether or not the Republican Party has its full leadership ideals packaged well enough to go into this election?
Well, look, I mean, I think this is what presidential campaigns are about. You're supposed to debate big issues in a big presidential campaign, and I think that's healthy in both parties. And it's not just the Republican Party. I think this question of what do we do about Vladimir Putin is going to be a question for the country, as you suggested at the outset, to come to terms with over the next couple of years. So why not have that conversation?
Does it make you a little nervous that we don't have an answer quite yet, though, Jerry, when you see everything that Vladimir Putin is doing? I mean, you wonder when we're going to find the answer, whatever that is, and do we have the time to do it?
Well,
I guess it's really the question.
Look, we shouldn't overestimate Vladimir Putin. He's got plenty of problems of his own. He's got a severe economic problem at home. Economic sanctions, which are in place, that the U.S. did put in place, are having some effect. And, you know, he's not Superman. It's just that he's become more aggressive. And over the long run, that's something the U.S. has to consider.
Fox Business is going to be having a debate next week. I believe, Jerry, you're going to be part of that as well. And should we anticipate any questions on this?
I think you should.
I think we're getting an idea. Jerry, great to have you.
Thanks,
Thank you very much. We look forward to that.